necessary that the person should be present on whom the thing is said, or that it should be rightly said, if the assertion is true, and not superficial ; for these two things may exist separately. Thus for instance, to say, It is necessary to die free from all faults," and It is requisite that a worthy man should marry a worthy woman, is true, but is not politely said. But to say, It is worth while to die, when not deserving to die, is both true and politely said. The diction, also, will appear to be more polite, the more it contains of those things from which politeness is derived ; as, if the words are metaphorical, and metaphors of such a kind, and if there is antithesis, adequation, and energy. Images, likewise, as we have before observed, are always after a manner approved metaphors ; for they are always derived from two things, in the same manner as an analogous metaphor. Thus we say that a shield is the cup of Mars, and that a bow is a stringless harp. When we thus speak, however, the assertion is not simple. But to say that a bow is a harp, or a shield a cup, is a simple assertion. They assimilate, however, as follows ; as a player on the flute to an ape, and a short*sighted man to a trickling lamp. For in both there is a contraction. But images are celebrated when they contain a metaphor. For it is to assimilate, to say that a shield is the cup of Mars, that a ruinous building is a worn out garment, and that Niceratus, according to the assimilation of Thrasymachus, was Philoctetes bit by the poet Prates. For Thrasymachus said this in consequence of seeing Niceratus vanquished by Prates in a poetical contest, and through this neglecting his person. In these similitudes, however, poets fail unless they are proper, even if they are celebrated. I mean for instance, when they say, He carries legs like parsley bent, and As Philemon with Corycus yoked in contest, and all such things are images. But that images are metaphors has been frequently observed by us. Proverbs likewise are metaphors from species to species, [i. e. in which one species is predicated of another on account of agreement in the same genus. Thus of him who expects to derive advantage from a certain thing, if he should afterwards suffer a loss from it, it is said as the Carpathian the hare. For both suffered the evil we have mentioned. And thus we have nearly assigned the cause whence and why diction is polite. Celebrated hyperboles also are metaphors, as of one who had contusions on his face, You would have thought him to be a basket of mulberries," for the part under the eyes is red. But this hyperbole is much too great. An hyperbole, however, may differ from an hyperbole in the diction ; as instead of saying, Philemon yoked in contest with Corycus, it might be said, You would have thought it was Philemon fighting with Corycus, and instead of saying, He carried legs as distorted as parsley, it might be said, I should have thought that he had not legs, but parsley, they are so distorted. Hyperboles, however, are puerile ; for they indicate a vehement motion of the soul. Hence they are especially used by those who are angry. Thus Achilles in Iliad 9 speaks hyperbolically, when he says he is not to be appeased by the gifts of Agamemnon. Though bribes were heaped on bribes in number more Than dust in fields, or sands along the shore. And Atrides' daughter never shall be led, An ill*matched consort, to Achilles' bed. Like golden Venus though she charmed the heart. Or vied with Pallas in the works of art. The Attic rhetoricians, also, especially use hyperboles, on which account it is unbecoming in an old man to speak hyperbolically. CHAPTER XII. It is, however, requisite not to be ignorant that a different diction is adapted to each genus of orations. For graphic and agonistic diction, i.e. the diction employed in writing and at the bar, are not the same, nor forensic, and that which is employed in popular harangues. But it is necessary to know both these kinds of diction. For to know the one is to know how to speak properly. And by a knowledge of the other, we are not compelled to be silent when we wish to impart something to others, which those suffer who do not know how to write. But graphic diction, or the diction pertaining to writing, is indeed most accurate. But the agonistic, or that which belongs to the bar, is most adapted to action. Of this latter, however, there are two species, one ethical, but the other pathetic. Hence, also, players choose dramas of this kind, and poets choose such like players to act their fables. Those poets, likewise, are most approved whose fables delight not only when acted, but also when read, such as those of Chaeremon, whose diction is as accurate as that of any writer of orations. And among the dithyrambic poets, those of Lysimachus. When orations also are compared with each other, those which are written will appear when recited in forensic contests to be jejune. On the other hand, those orations which when publicly delivered are heard with applause, if they are perused when written, will appear to be unpolished and inaccurate. The reason of which is, that they are merely adapted to forensic contests. Hence, those which are adapted to action, when deprived of action, in consequence of not accomplishing their proper work, appear to be jejune. Thus, for instance, disjointed sentences and frequent repetition are rightly rejected in the diction pertaining to writing. But rhetoricians use these in the diction which belongs to the bar. For both these are adapted to action. This repetition, however, ought to be delivered with a change of the voice, which as it were prepares the way for action, as, He it is who robbed you, he it is who deceived you, he it is who at last endeavoured to betray you, as Philemon the player also did whilst he acted in the Gerontomeria of Anaxandrides, when Rhadamanthus and Palamede speak, and also in the prologue of the play called the Pious, where I is frequently repeated. For if such repetitions are not accompanied with action, the actor, according to the proverb, will seem to carry a beam. The like also must be observed with respect to disjointed sentences, such as I came, I met him, I requested him. For it is necessary that these should be accompanied with action, and not, as if only one thing was said, pronounced with the same manner, and the same tone of voice. Farther still, disjointed diction possesses something peculiar, since in an equal time many things appear to be said. For the conjunction, or connective copula, causes many things to be one, so that if it is taken away, it is evident that on the contrary one thing will be many. Hence he amplifies who says, I came, I spoke to him, I supplicated him much, but he seems to despise whatever I have said, whatever I do say. Homer also intends to do this, when speaking of Nereus in the second book of the Iliad, he says, Three ships with Nereus sought the Trojan shore, Nereus, whom Aglae to Charopus bore, Nereus in faultless shape and blooming grace, the loveliest youth of all the Grecian race. For he, of whom many things are said, must necessarily be frequently mentioned. If, therefore, he is frequently mentioned, many things also appear